We'll call the meeting to order. The Pledge of Allegiance. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you all. Our clerk is home ill, and so with that, be happy to accept any nominations for clerk for the meeting.
I nominate Treasurer Rice.
Support.
Motion by Smith, support by Thering. Any discussion? Treasurer Rice, you good?
I'm good.
Any other discussion? All in favor of Treasurer Rice being our temporary clerk for this meeting, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Thank you so much for doing extra.
Not a problem.
Motion passes unanimously. We have a light agenda in front of us tonight. Let me just
Roll call.
take note. Yes, thank you. I always forget the roll call. Would you please do roll call of the board?
Sure. Supervisor Milky.
Here?
Clerk Cody's excused. Treasurer Rice here. Trustee Bills and Trustee Brown both excused. Trustee Smith
Here.
and Trustee Thering.
Here.
Quorum established.
Now I can move on.
Yep.
On to item 4 of the agenda, approval of the agenda. We do have a light one, and it's probably good, being that we're a light board this evening.
I make a motion to approve the agenda as presented.
Support.
Motion by Thering, support by Smith. Any discussion? All in favor of the motion to approve the agenda as presented, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Agenda is approved unanimously. We have no presentations this evening, no public hearings. That brings us to item 7 on the agenda. Public comment. Public comment is restricted to items on this agenda. Note, if you choose to address the public, please state your name and address for the record. And with that, we'll open up public comment at 7:02 p.m. Let the record show that there's no one connected remotely, nor is there any other public in person. And seeing no one coming forward, we'll close public comment at 7:02 p.m., which brings us to item 9 on our agenda, report boards and comments. Just a note, again, on ZBA, we have 2 spots, 1 that's vacant and 2 that we'd like to fill, so continue to work. I thought I had somebody to sign up, and they last minute decided not to. And then I had one of the planning commissioners ask about it. I thought, well, you can't do that. 'Cause there's a liaison. Brian Buckley's the liaison. And then sidewalk committee. Anything else on that, anyone? Moving to 9B on the agenda, board member reports. Trustee Smith?
None.
Treasurer Rice?
Taxes were out and in people's mailboxes by the 1st, and we're getting calls.
I got mine in time. Trustee Thering?
I was not present at the last planning commission meeting, but they did work on the master plan the whole meeting. And talking with one of the commissioners, they learned a lot and made a little headway, and so.
I did hear a comment from one of the commissioners as well, saying it was a great meeting. That
Yeah.
Really enjoyed that.
Mhm.
I always enjoyed the master plan stuff as well. I have nothing else to report. You good, Trustee Thering? All good?
Yes, sir.
I have nothing else to report, so let's move on to item 10 on the agenda, consent agenda. Happy to entertain any motions regarding consent agenda.
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Support.
Motion by Thering, support by Smith, and you had accounts payable.
I did.
Warrants.
No, nothing to report. Thank you.
Any other discussion? Everybody saw the manhole rehabilitation
Yes.
in there? Okay, see no discussion, all in favor of
Oh, I'm
approval?
sorry.
Yep.
I do have one. I was looking at the map, and it said there was 16 manholes, but I could only identify 15. And not that it's not a big deal. I don't mean to make a big deal out of it. I just.
Yeah, on the map on page 25 of your agenda packet, you may be missing the one that's in the inset. The little box towards the key, the map key.
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
Yep.
I guess I don't see, all of them have the little circle around them, so
Right,
I'm,
there's a little square at the bottom by the north, the north, south, east,
Right
west.
there. Oh, I thought that was just, I
That's
did not
an
count
inset.
that one, okay. Well, there we go, so this is the one that's
There
right
it
in front
By
of
the
me.
compass.
Thank you,
No.
I wasn't concerned, I was just kind of,
I counted the same thing, I had to look a minute for the 16.
okay, thank you.
I'll admit I didn't actually count them, so. Anything else on the consent agenda? The motion to approve the consent agenda as presented. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, same sign. Consent agenda passes unanimously. As mentioned, we have a light business agenda tonight. That brings us to item 11A, excuse me. Pump Station 1 Construction Project Participation Agreement. Mr. Stuhldreher, would you like to introduce this?
Thank you and good evening, everybody. There's a report on this item on page 28 of your agenda packet. This is requesting consideration of for approval of a participation agreement between the Economic Development Authority and Union Township as it relates to Pump Station number 1 in the amount of $160,000. As you may recall, we've been trying to get funding and get parts, and Pump Station number 1's been kind of in the works for a couple of years now. And EDA they'd agreed to participate $160,000 towards this project. It had been in their budgets for a number of years, but then we missed it for the 2023 budget. So there's two things that are being requested here. One is to approve the agreement between the township and the EDA, and then also approve an amendment to EDA's budget, which the EDA approved in June of 23 at their meeting. So in June of 23, EDA approved a budget amendment for their side, for their budget. Their budgets are not to be fully approved. EDA's budgets also need approval by the Board of Trustees. So that's why this amendment in conjunction with the participation agreement is before you tonight. We use the participation agreement. We are two technically separate entities, and this just memorializes that EDA has agreed to participate in this project and for the amount stated of $160,000. Anybody has any questions, be happy to answer them.
I'll make the motion. Make the motion for the approval of the participation agreement with the Economic Development Association, EDA, for the Pump Station number 1 construction project and a budget amendment to the fiscal year 2023 EDA budget in the amount of $160,000.
Support.
Motion by Smith, support by Rice. Any further discussion on this?
Just glad to have them participating,
Yeah.
extra money into that.
For sure. They were glad too.
Yeah.
I mean, they see it as an important project. So.
It is.
All right, with that, we have a motion to approve the budget amendment for the EDA for Pump Station 1 participation. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion passes unanimously. That brings us to item 11B on our agenda. Review of bids for tall grass and weed ordinance enforcement. Again, Mr. Stuhldreher, would you like to introduce
Thank you.
this?
And you do have a report on this that begins on page 32 of your agenda packet. The township, through its code enforcement activities, has on occasion the need to cut people's grass when they have not responded to our notices and our other attempts to get them to cut the grass. The ordinance allows for the township then to cut the grass. We in turn then bill the property owner. If they don't pay, it ends up on their tax bill. And then we need a vendor then to do that work, actually go out and cut the grass. We had 2 bids received for this project, one from Gunner Lawn Care and the other from B Green Lawn Services. The administration recommends that Gunner Lawn Care be selected as a successful bidder. Both companies can do the job. We think that Gunner, we also use Gunner in other contractual arrangements, primarily in the EDA and the curb lawn area. So we do have experience with them. And then their pricing is just a little bit, we get into some square footage versus pure hourly, but our recommendation is with Gunner to perform this service for the township.
Now, how long have we had used Gunner on the EDA? Do you have any idea? Has it been a couple of years?
This, I want to say, is the second year of that service. It might be the third. The EDA did bid that out whenever they went with Gunner, but I can't recall if this is the second season. I know it's not the first.
Okay. And so we got extensive, just when I see the pricing difference like that, I kind of get a little nervous that it was that big of a gap. But if you have experience with them and they do a good job, then,
They do a very good job.
They've worked really well. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
Go ahead.
They do, from the EDA perspective, I think I can say their interaction has been really good with EDA, especially with the Pickard project.
yeah.
So there's been a lot of nuances to deal with this
Okay.
year. And in fact, Mr. Gonner, the owner of the business, came in and talked to the EDA about some of the issues that they were having, that we were having, and it was all very healthy, I felt.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions? Be happy to answer them.
Just historically, and I don't expect you to have the statistics on this, but I was just kind of curious about roughly what's a typical season look like as far as the number of lawns that have to be mowed by the township because of violation of the ordinance.
I didn't catch the first part of that.
What do you think a typical year looks like as far as the number of lawns that townships having to do this on these days?
I would, without looking at the data, I'm guessing it's a half a dozen or so. It's not a huge number, but there is some activity, at least to the point where we have to go out and cut it. There's many more than that, where usually the property owner will respond to our letters and notices and phone calls to deal with it.
Is this something that, I'm assuming they get multiple notices before we step in, and is that accurate? Do you know how the process works? Here's why I ask. I didn't know, in the past, we had an issue with some property owners that felt it was cheaper to pay the township twice to do it than to hire someone to actually do it themselves.
Mm-hmm.
And so they would just intentionally let it go. And in some cases, it's unhealthy for those, because sometimes you have noxious weeds that people are allergic to, et cetera, et cetera. And so it can be considered a health hazard as well as an eyesore. And so I didn't know if, long ago we put in that violation ordinance bureau with the intent that if you violate it once, let's say your fine is $50, second time it's $100. So that escalates, so it discourages repeat offenders, essentially. And I didn't know if that is something that is being triggered by some of this process at all or not. Does that make sense, my question?
Yeah. It has not been triggered to date. And other than maybe just very recently, at least in the, I'll describe it as the recent past, we haven't had problems with repeat offenders.
It's good to hear.
That may be. We do have one individual that we're communicating with right now that has basically said, I'm not going to cut it. You guys do it. Send me a bill. And there's some other things around that, but I hope to resolve that posture by the
Right.
resident.
Yeah. Okay, I was just kind of curious because I know this has been a bit of an issue in the past, and blight is certainly a high priority based on some of the surveys we've had. And so, any other questions for our manager? Happy to entertain any motions.
I move to select Gunner Lawn Service as the successful bidder for mowing services for residential and commercial properties within the township that are in violation of the township's noxious weeds and tall grass ordinance number 1998-5, and to authorize the township manager to sign a service agreement with the successful bidder for these services.
Support.
Motion by Thering, support by Smith. Further discussion? All in favor of the motion to select a successful bidder for the mowing services and authorize the township manager to sign the service agreement, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion passes unanimously. That finishes our new business. Brings us to item 12 on the agenda, extended public comment. Extended public comment is restricted to 5 minutes regarding any issue. If you choose to address the public, please state your name and address for the record. And we will open up extended public comment at 7:17 p.m.
There's no one online.
Still no one connected remotely, so let the record show no one connected and no one in person. So seeing no one coming forward, we'll close extended public comment at 7:17 p.m. That brings item 13 on our agenda. Mr. Stuhldreher, manager comments. You have the floor.
Thank you. And just two quick update on the fitness court. I don't know if you've seen the work out there lately. The pad's been poured. Sidewalks are in place, basically behind the dugout on the baseball field over here that then runs over across the front of the fitness court out to the parking lot. There's another sidewalk that kind of meanders south of the fitness pad. That those are all in now. They've begun the restoration. If you haven't had a chance to look at it, it's nice looking. July 25th is when they are anticipating beginning the installation of the equipment, putting that together, bolting it to the pad. That'll be a 3-day exercise, and then as soon as they're done back there, it's Isabella Corp that's doing the excavating and the concrete work, and they're just about done with the restoration, laying the dirt and the grass seed. They'll move around and start in front of the hall, then come down the north side of the hall and connect in behind the dugout. So that's the status of that. And then I don't recall, I might have sent you an email, but we have some homeless encampment. I don't recall if I sent any pictures to you, but they've set up a little bit in the dugout area over Jameson Park. There's also some folks out in what's now the Thrive property, kind of behind the field at Jameson. So we saw those, took some pictures, contacted the sheriff, and asked the sheriff to move the folks along. So I just want to let you know that. And I'll forward you the pictures if you're.
Thank you.
The fence in front of the dugout's a clothesline, and there's. I'll show it to you just because it's sad. Don't get me wrong, but We don't want it
Yeah.
Yeah.
in our park. That's all I have, thank you.
So on the sidewalks, we'll be coming down Pickard and then down Lincoln. So would there be ramps onto Pickard and to Lincoln in the corner here? And if so, do we then have to put the opposing?
No.
Okay, so we're not putting that in, so, at this time?
Not yet. There will not be a ramp at this corner. If there was, we would have to put a ramp on the other side. And so we're just bending it around the corner right now. But we are continuing to work on sidewalks east of Lincoln down Pickard. And I believe we're focusing on the north side, at which time we would need to then put in the ramps.
That's why I was asking, is I figured we can't really connect yet without committing to the other corners.
Right, right.
Okay, good. Thank you. Any other questions?
No.
Moving right along on our agenda tonight, item 14, final board member comment. Trustee Therian,
I am good, thank you.
Trustee Smith,
I'm good, thanks.
Treasurer Rice.
We're good.
We're good. I'm sure I have something, but hope you're enjoying summer. I'm happy to entertain any motions to
I'll make
adjourn.
a
Motion to-
motion, we adjourn.
I support.
Motion by Treasurer Rice, support by Trustee Smith. All in favor of adjourning, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, same sign. We are adjourned. Thank you all.
21.